The predator's roar shook the jungle moons of Selner 4, echoing to the canopy like thunder over glass. General Terran's scales rippled with tension as he scanned the clearing below. 3 of the Rolic brood, offspring of the most feared predator species in the sector, were gone, vanished. "Search every den, every ridge," he barked. His command echoed through the comms, but even the elite hunters hesitated. The Rolic weren't just predators. They were apex entities, second only to the ancient death worlders of Sol 3. Losing their cubs wasn't just a tragedy. It was a galactic incident waiting to ignite. The human envoys were still on the outpost. That fact made Terran's mandibles twitch. By the time the soldiers returned, fear shimmered in the humid air. "No trace," one croaked. Another held out a tuft of fur, small, grayish, singed at the tips. The scent analysis came back strange. "Carbon, iron, salt, and something else," the officer stammered. "Sweat. Human sweat." The words hit like plasma fire. The Rolic matron herself descended from orbit, her armored escort flanking her in silence. Her 4 eyes burned with fury as she spoke, low and venomous. "If humans have taken them, the stars will drown in blood." Hours later, a search party found footprints, bipedal, small, half the size of an adult human. They led toward the human camp nestled beside the research outpost. The camp wasn't fortified, just a collection of tents, crates, and a flickering generator humming softly in the dusk. Terran approached with his strike team, plasma rifles drawn, claws glinting. He could hear laughter from inside one of the shelters. Human laughter. He motioned for silence. The group surrounded the tent, and at his signal, they tore it open. Inside sat human, tall, broad, with sunburned skin and grease stains on his sleeves. Around him, 3 Rolic cubs were sleeping soundly, curled up in his lap and under his arm like kittens. The man looked up mid-spoonful of soup, blinking at the array of glowing weapons now aimed directly at his skull. "Oh, hey," he said casually. "You found them." Terran's claws flexed. "Explain," he hissed. The human set down his bowl and scratched the head of one cub, who purred with a sound like rumbling machinery. "They wandered into the cargo bay," he said. "Nearly froze trying to get at the coolant tanks. Poor things were terrified, hungry, and covered in grime. So I cleaned them up, fed them, and they fell asleep." The matron's ship landed with a quake moments later. Her towering silhouette emerged from the mist, each step shaking the soil. She saw her cubs sleeping in the human's arms and froze. The Rolic were a warrior race that respected nothing but dominance and blood. But what she saw wasn't dominance. It was care. Her instinct screamed to tear the human apart, yet something else stopped her. The cubs, hearing her approach, stirred and whimpered. When they saw her, they didn't run to their mother. They pressed closer to human, clinging to his leg. The air went utterly still. Even the jungle seemed to hold its breath. The matron's claws retracted slowly. "They chose you," she murmured, voice cracking under disbelief. The human shrugged. "Kids are kids. Doesn't matter what species." He handed one of them a spoonful of broth. The cub tried to eat it, missed, and sneezed, sending droplets flying across his shirt. He just laughed. The sound disarmed even the most hardened of Rolic warriors. The matron approached, lowering herself to meet her cub's eyes. "Come," she whispered softly. But they didn't move. They mewed softly, eyes fixed on the human. The warriors began to murmur among themselves. No Rolic cub had ever disobeyed a parent. It was unthinkable. But it was happening now. The human looked from the matron to the cubs, then stood carefully, still holding the smallest one. "I'm guessing they were scared of all the shouting and plasma fire earlier," he said. "They'll go with you once they feel safe." He kneeled, whispering something to the cub in his arms. Whatever he said, the cubs were settled, and it stepped toward its mother hesitantly. The matron reached down, trembling. When the cub nuzzled her claw, something in her changed. The fury faded, replaced by something primal, ancient recognition. She turned to Terran and spoke quietly. "No one touches a human." The declaration shocked everyone. Even Terran blinked, mandibles twitching in confusion. The matron turned fully toward the human. "What is your name?" Caretaker, my children. He smiled faintly. Sergeant Evan Cole, ma'am. Maintenance crew, level C. The matron bowed her massive head slightly. Sergeant Cole, you have done what no being in this quadrant could. You earned the trust of my brood. Word spread like wildfire through the sector. An apex predator species bowing in gratitude to a human, something that hadn't happened since the ancient treaties of Sol. Within days, footage of the moment was transmitted across the galactic net. The towering matron kneeling before a human technician, her claws folded in respect. Some called it propaganda. Others called it a miracle. But to the Rollick, it was sacred. Cole didn't seek attention. He went back to his duties, fixing water filters, sealing hull fractures, and telling stories to anyone who'd listen. But now, every Rollick warrior he passed saluted him in silence. The cubs would often sneak back to his tent, curling up on his boots while he worked. The base's AI eventually had to create new scheduling protocols because the Rollick soldiers refused to deploy without ensuring Caretaker Cole was informed of their mission. One evening, while the twin moons rose red over the horizon, the matron visited him again. She came without guards this time, her enormous frame casting a long shadow across the camp. Cole offered her a seat, well, a crate, but she declined, lowering herself to the ground instead. You could have claimed them, she said quietly. Demanded ransom or glory or protection, yet you did not. Cole looked up from the small campfire. Didn't cross my mind, he said. They were scared, hungry, alone. Didn't need a soldier, just someone who'd make sure they were okay. The matron regarded him for a long time. Your species, she said, terrifies a galaxy. And yet, you are capable of this. Her voice softened. That is why the stars fear you, not because you destroy, but because you choose not to. Cole poked the fire, letting the embers drift. Fear's overrated, he muttered. Understanding lasts longer. The matron bowed her head once more. If ever the Rollick call for aid, she said solemnly, our first message will be to Sol, and my brood will remember your name. The next morning, the Rollick ships departed. The jungle grew quiet again, save for the hum of distant wildlife. Yet something had changed. The Galactic Council convened 3 weeks later, reviewing the event under the title the Selner Accord. For the first time in history, the Rollick proposed a cultural exchange with humans. They called it Project Cubkeeper. Months passed, and reports emerged of Rollick young being fostered among human educators, learning empathy alongside combat training. Where other species saw madness, the Rollick saw evolution. And at the heart of it all was one quiet human mechanic who fixed more than machinery. He'd repaired something between species themselves. Years later, when Cole retired to a colony on Vega Prime, a small freighter arrived unannounced. From its Step 3 towering figures, armored and regal, the cubs, now grown, they bowed low before him. Caretaker, the eldest said, her voice resonant and strong. We come as promise. He smiled, older now, eyes glinting with recognition. Guess you finally figured out how to eat soup without spilling it? The eldest chuckled, a sound that rumbled like thunder. Not quite, she said, lifting a steaming bowl from her satchel. We brought enough for you to teach us again. When the sun set that night, witnesses saw the strangest sight ever recorded on Vega Prime. 3 Rollick warriors and 1 old human sitting by a fire, laughing as stars rose above them. For all the wars and fears of the galaxy, that single image, a predator's brood finding peace in humans' care, became the most replayed footage in the archives. And in the centuries that followed, whenever young Rollick were frightened in the dark, their elders would whisper a name that had become legend. Evan Cole, the human who humbled predators. Because in a galaxy built on strength, it wasn't power that changed everything. It was kindness,